C-suite. So with the new year, hold your fire, please.
Wow.
What can management expect in terms of shakeups in 2014? Joining us now is Matt Zeitlin. He's BuzzFeed's business reporter. He's been writing a lot about activists this year. When it comes to 2014, first of all, do you have a surprise company for us that you think is going to be attacked? Can you tell us in advance?
I mean, if I knew, I wouldn't tell you, right? But you know, any company with a huge amount of cash, which is more and more of them, it's just a really, really inviting target, and that people don't think it's doing.
And so what is the answer then in terms of how you react? Do you say talk to the hand? Do you say please come in under my tent so that you get stuck in my tent? What's the appropriate response?
Yeah, I think a really good example is what Microsoft did with Value Act. They right before the deadline to have a proxy contest, they let them in, said that you could join the board the next year. And then they had a CEO change, and they're kind of frozen.
Wait a second. Those activists, I always look at that as kind of a weird move. Those guys only own 1% of the Microsoft stock.
Well, Carl Icahn owns less than 1% of Apple, and yet he's on CNBC seemingly every other week asking for more money.
But, but you think anybody who walks in the door and just screams loudly enough you should cave to?
Well, it depends how credible they are. But you just see when these companies, especially a lot of these technology companies, the cash just piling up. One person can kind of speak for a lot of people. I mean, just look at what happened with Apple and David Einhorn. Owned a tiny amount of the stock, had a kind of kooky plan for how they could return it, and they got one of the biggest buyback and dividends in corporate history.
But Apple has not gone along with what Icahn has wanted. I mean, Apple has said, yeah, we hear you and we're thinking about all these things, but we're not doing what you want. And they got Icahn to back down. He said, you're right. Okay, now I want you to buy back this much instead of that much. I mean, in some ways, I think it's a problem if you reward bad behavior.
Well, it's just they have all this money sitting around, and people are going to go after it. And it's their responsibility to say they're doing something with it proactively.
Matt, let me ask you a different question. And this may be sensitive even at this table. And maybe Joe and Becky have views on this, too. I was speaking with a banker who defends corporations a lot these days, who says, actually, who's at fault in all of this is the media. That we have become enablers of the activist, and that if they didn't have the megaphone that is either TV or websites or newspapers, that nobody would listen to them.
Or Twitter.
Or Twitter. Or Twitter. And by the way, Twitter, you can now go direct. You can go direct to the shareholder. So where do you put the BuzzFeeds of the world or CNBC or anybody else?
Well, that's absolutely the case. I think another great example of this is, you know, a year ago, when Bill Ackman went, it's kind of not a traditional activist case, but when he announced his short on Herbalife, he went
it came on us, but everybody covered it.
Exactly, and he has a much better relationship with, you know, financial reporters in New York than, you know, Michael Johnson does out in L.A. with Herbalife. And I think
why is that absolutely the case? I mean, look, a lot of those bankers are my clients. A lot of these big firms are my clients also, right? But they can communicate directly with their shareholders also, and they really ought to be, right? If you allow space for an activist to come in, that you're probably not doing your job communicating well with your shareholders, which you really ought to be.
I agree. I think all these people should look to you to have them help them out. But no, it's just hedge fund managers, especially these ones that got really, really famous in the financial crisis, have a much better microphone.
It didn't work for Ackman. He got really loud about it, used the media, came on a lot of places and did it, and that completely backfired because all that happened was Carl Icahn heard him talking about it and said, I'm going to get him.
Well, you know, the stock did dive down to about $25 right after his presentation. If you're fundamentally wrong, no amount of savviness can help you out if you're just wrong.
He's lost a ton of money on that short.
Okay, different question.
Yes.
Activists. Force for good or force for evil? I'll ask both of you this. In terms of, are they short-termers, as some of your corporate clients would like to suggest? Are they actually helping shareholders? Are they helping the companies? Or are they a problem?
We've been on both sides of it, frankly. And in some cases, they have a real case to be made, right, where companies are not being aggressive enough in using their cash to grow the company. Right, that matters. Growing the company for the shareholders. So it's a case by case. I don't think you can make
I think of Uncle Carl, and I say to myself, Carl has an amazing investing gut. He seems to, I mean, in a way that is really,
really good.
You know, supernatural, and yet I don't think he knows anything really about the operations or has the technical skills to talk about Dell or Apple or any of these other companies. So,
I think some people are afraid of him. Becky made a great point. Like Apple talked to him, right? I think they explained the business to him. They explained some of their strategy to him, and also explained that they're not going to cower to him, right? That they've got that, like, they do know their shareholders. Their shareholders have faith in them and their brand and their long-term strategy, and so they were able to beat back Carl Icahn with knowledge and information, communicating with their shareholders.
To Icahn's point, though, he never said that he knew what to do from a
he knew what to do with the financial
part, with the money.
But that itself is kind of depressing, right? I mean, it kind of shows the economy we have where, the companies are accumulating all this cash, and yet they don't really see a lot of growth on the other end, so they might as well give it back to their shareholders. And the activists are just a way of kind of helping out that process.
Sad reality. Matt, thank you. Happy New Year. Appreciate you coming in.
And coming